Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Corlick from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and today we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of video game pickups I got from Brazil. As you can tell, I'm wearing this shirt, which is like the very first pickup there. Look, it's a Tectoy employee shirt, which is really cool. This was gifted to me while I was down there. I also got all the stuff you see on the table, and there's actually going to be a second round of things that I got at a convention called RetroCon, which was the entire reason I was down there. I was invited as a guest, and I got to spend about a week and a half in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and I had an awesome time. It was like the gold standard of a convention event for me now, because man, they really took care of us. Not only myself, but John Riggs and John Hancock, fellow YouTubers I'm sure you guys know. It was just a great time. So it was very, very cool to go there, and I picked up a lot of weird stuff, because those who don't know, Brazil is a strange case when it comes to video games. They have some strange laws that make it prohibitively expensive in a lot of cases to get most video game consoles and platforms, and it's been like that for a long time. So a lot of systems, particularly the Sega Master System very famously, and Mega Drive, Genesis to a lesser extent, had very different timelines of events because they were allowed to survive where they were basically died off in other parts of the world. And a lot of Brazilian companies, to get around some of these issues with getting game consoles in the country, had to do localization efforts, basically local distributors, which caused mutant versions of game consoles and games to come out. So it's famous for being bizarre as far as the oddities that arose, and I picked up a handful, not even close to all the things I saw or wanted, but hey, future trips. So we will start off and just go on in it and just talk all about the weird stuff I managed to bring out of Brazil. Before we do that, though, if you guys could do me a favor, please like this video, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't done that before, and check out all my social media stuff in the description. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, Spreadshirt, my travel channel, etc. I appreciate the support on those platforms. Thank you so much. Let's get into it. Okay, so first and foremost, if you join my Discord, which I just mentioned there, there's multiple cool people in there, but we've always kind of lacked Brazilians. But we finally got a couple, and one in particular, shout out to him, Tio, who we refer to as Brazilian GameCube Gigolo. He was the one who was really rallying me to get to come down there, and then, you know, in a combination of that, along with the convention, it eventually just finally happened. But because he knew I was coming, we had worked out a little trade. I had hooked him up with some stuff, and in exchange, he hooked me up with this. This is the Phantom. Yes, we're starting off big here. This is the Phantom. This will get one day its own rare variants video, well, first of all, let's just take a quick look at it. Okay, so inside, we got a boxed one. It comes with the system itself. This one in particular is actually, the power supply was USB-C modded. Somebody took out the original power supply and put that in, which is actually very nice for me, because then I don't have to deal with any weird voltage conversion or anything like that. It's just straight up USB-C port and it powers up. We tested it out down in Brazil. The thing works perfectly fine. And then it also came with two controllers, which look like this. Tio was able to find these. I think he repaired one of them because one of them needed maintenance. And then it came with a couple of games. This is one of them, and this is another. Now you might be like, what am I even looking at? Like I said, this is worthy of its own rare variants video. But basically, I'll do a very shortened version of this story. While people know Nintendo or Sega stuff more in Brazil, at least it's, you know, I'm going to pack that away later. Let's just put this off to the side. People are more familiar with the timeline of how, like, Sega stuff survived down in Brazil. There's a lot less information, at least within the US, Canada, and the West, etc., about what happened with Nintendo down there. Nintendo has had a fairly strange relationship as well, but mostly what happened is two different companies, Gradiente, I think it's the former, as well as Playtronic, are two, like, local distributors that kind of just handled all their stuff. But for the most part, the releases they did were kind of vanilla, kind of boring. Except for this. So as I understand it, the origin of this is Nintendo went to Gradiente, and said, hey, we want to bring the NES to Brazil, or at the time the Famicom, whatever. We don't know what we're doing, though, so, like, we'll trust you and handle it. And Brazil. That's the only way to put it. So they were like told, okay, make it more effective, cost effective, etc. Let's just get it out there. So they used this design might look familiar. They used surplus Atari 7800 shells for the console, and the controller they used surplus Sega Genesis / Mega Drive controllers, and then they made their own NES cartridges. And they made their own Famicom-style cartridges that are also 72-pin. It's a bizarre mutation of, like, everything, and it works. So Nintendo panicked when this happened, and they kind of pulled out of it, but they had already signed off on it, so it got very weird. So this is technically an official Nintendo product, sort of. That's the only way to really put it. Like, Nintendo signed off on it before it was released, not knowing what the final result was going to be. But yeah, it's not like an NOAC, like, clone stuff. Nintendo was on board until they saw the final design and said, you can't release that. And they're like, well, it's too late. We're going to do it anyway. But yeah, one day that's going to get its own video because the fuller story is just bonkers. But yeah, it came with a couple of games. One is called Phantom Systems. That's specifically the name of the way that these particular carts were designed. And this is Excitebike, believe it or not. But it just says Phantom all over, which makes it exciting. But you'll see these black NES carts throughout Brazil. Those are the ones that were specifically also designed for the Famicom. And this one was the one that made me laugh the most. So this is actually Super Mario Brothers, but they weren't allowed to call it that because Nintendo kind of panicked and pulled out, but they still were allowed to put the game out because Brazil. So look at this. It's called Super Irmãos. I don't know how to pronounce it. And the artwork is just ridiculous. But that's how we're starting this video off. That's how you know this stuff is bizarre. But yeah, huge shout out to Tio for making this one happen, because this was like one of my, probably, I'm not going to say my number one on my list of things, but like it was certainly the first one that came to mind. So yeah, very, very cool to have that. Okay, so moving on though. While the convention itself was great, we got to hang out with the guys who ran it for a long time, and they kept just driving us to various game stores, because a lot of the game stores had actually put up the money to bring us down there. So they were really just trying to, be Brazilian and show us a good time, is the best way I could put it. So we went to the Chuzone store first, which is called Casa de Video Games, or the House of Video Games. And this is all the stuff I got in that store. Now, funniest thing about Chuzone, and I guess this is like a Brazilian culture thing, like I made a pile of things. I was like, okay, here, I will buy this. I'm ready to give you money for it. And he would not take my money. He was just like, nope, doesn't work here. And so he ended up giving me this stuff for free, which he really did not have to do. Meanwhile, the big box and the two littler ones, he also just gave to me for free without any sort of discussion. I never asked for anything associated with this. He just kind of came over and said this. The closest thing to that was at one point I just randomly asked, are there like Xbox exclusive content down here? Because I genuinely didn't know. And so he came back with these two things that have sort of Xbox exclusive content. So, we'll talk about those first, because why not? He popped out, this is Forza 5, or Forza Horizon 5, which is by no means an exclusive to Brazil. But what is, and the game is still sealed, it's for the Xbox One and Series X right there. But what is exclusive is it came with a hat, and I guess the hat is exclusive. I told him, like, no, I don't need that. It's fine. I was just curious. But then he was like, nope, you have to take it now. And I was told it's kind of rude when Brazilians try to give you something and you turn it down. So I was like, okay, all right, thank you very much. And the same basic thing happened with this. He just came over and handed us all a copy of Halo Infinite for the Series X. There's two sort of exclusive because it came with like a deck of cards or something. I haven't opened this one. It's still sealed up. And it's just like, you didn't have to do that. Thank you very much, but you certainly didn't have to do that. But yeah, so I got technically those two releases, which is nice. We'll get to the big box in a second. This is the pile of items I was prepared to pay money for, and then when I tried to, I was denied that option. So here they are. I wanted to get a couple more games for the Phantom, and it's interesting, like the companies that supported the Phantom. Some of them pulled out, and some of them decided that's fine, we'll just release. And I think that's what happened in the case of Gauntlet here, because I think that was Midway, although their name is nowhere on it. But yeah, that's Gauntlet. That's the NES version of Gauntlet, but on the Gradiente Phantom Edition cartridge. We also have another one, Super Sprint. I'm not sure if this is by another... I'm not as familiar with the NES library here, so I can't really be sure. But yeah, that's just some kind of racing game. Also, so I wanted to get this because at the time I wasn't finding any like Mega Drive crazy stuff, and I liked this because of well, it'll be obvious. This is one of those 10-in-1 collection cartridges for the Sega Genesis. The reason I liked this was such a late release in Brazil that even though it has Sonic the Hedgehog on it, they used the Sonic Adventure artwork for the Dreamcast on a Genesis release. And this is not pirated. This was official down there. This was allowed to endure. Tectoy, again, the company I'm wearing, had a very close relationship with Sega and was allowed to basically have carte blanche to just get their content out there. Sega understood there was a certain amount of piracy and nonsense that was going to occur, a certain amount of quality control issues that were going to happen, but Sega didn't care because it just kept meaning, here's a check for whatever, and it's chaos down there, so just do whatever, but as long as we get money from every once in a while, we don't really care. So some of the releases like this are just bizarre, because this is completely official, and yet uses Sonic Adventure artwork on a Sega Genesis game. I think that's cool. All right. Oh, and the cartridges, by the way. So sometimes this is a little nutso. Like they have these full, thick manuals. The card itself looks very nice, etc. Some games are really a pain because the cases and the carts and the manual will all have serial numbers that all match. This didn't have any of those, so fortunately that wasn't a problem. But some of them do, and it's just like, oof, good luck to you if you're like a purist collector. But yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, now, you guys know me. I am a big fan of the Sega Dreamcast, favorite console of all time. Now, the thing with the Dreamcast in Brazil is that, and this is a common thing to occur in Brazil, is a local company like Tectoy, Gradiente, Playtronic, whatever, will get distribution rights for the console in Brazil. And inevitably, people just prefer to import the American version of stuff, or the Japanese version of stuff, or in lesser cases, sometimes European versions of stuff, usually because it's cheaper and it's just easier to deal with. It's a common thing. So there are actually Tectoy variants of most Sega consoles. Most of them aren't that interesting, but there are a few exceptions. But the Dreamcast is one of those cases where it's the Portuguese version is kind of rare. Like mostly what they would end up doing is just, hey, we're just going to take stock US units and US cases, and that's just what we're going to be what we're going to sell. But initially, Tectoy did do Dreamcast releases, very briefly. I guess it had just kind of come out, didn't do very well, and then from there on out, they're like, screw the localization version, let's just get the North American ones. But there were Tectoy editions for the Dreamcast, so anytime I saw one of the games, I just picked it up, which I didn't find that many, to be fair. First up, I got Blue Stinger. Now, at first glance, you're gonna look like, oh, that's the Japanese one. It's not. So the logo down there looks like the Japanese logo, but the Japanese logo is flipped and put up in the corner up here. So the placement is different. And then on the side, while it looks like a Japanese release as well, it isn't, because it's entirely in English on both sides and a smaller font. Japanese ones will be Japanese on one side and then English, but bigger English on the other side. This is smaller English on both sides. And then the case itself, if you go inside, you'll see it's all in Portuguese. Now, the funniest thing about this, though, is the discs are in no way special. These are straight up the US discs. NTSCU, just literally from the same factory that made the American ones, they just plopped them in these different cases. That's the only thing that's different about them, is the case's artwork, not the disc. The disc is in no way special. But it does say Tectoy on the bottom and everything. And so Blue Stinger is one of those releases, and I was like, yep, I found it, I wanted it, no problem. And I found a second one here, which was King of Fighters 1999, or Dream Match 99, right there. Again, the Tectoy release, same exact deal. Like I said, kind of at first glance looks Japanese, but is not. And then the manual and the case and all that stuff is in Portuguese, while the rest of it is in English. But like I said, they abandoned this pretty quickly in favor of just straight up North American releases. I actually don't know how many Tectoy issued Dreamcast games there are. I could hazard a guess at maybe like 10. There's not many from what I understood, but again, I don't actually know that number. Sadly, I do know Shenmue is one of them, and spoilers, I did not find it. I never even saw it. But that is one of them, and that a curse. I do want that. I did, however, get another Dreamcast release. However, it is not a Brazilian one. So the interesting thing about Brazil is because they're kind of considered second tier as far as a video game region. Like, if you think about video games, it's primarily the North American market, the Japanese market, which often represents all of Asia, even though it really is just Japan, and then the European market, which is kind of a strange term because it's a ton of different countries, but you get where I'm going. Most people don't really incorporate South America, any part of it, into that squad of countries. So as a result, because this is their localization efforts, they often import a lot of stuff. And a lot of their variants of systems have to support multiple regions for that reason. So in other words, it was very common to find imports down there. And I found a copy of Sonic Adventure, the Japanese one, and initially I was like, whatever, I don't need that, I have that, and whatever. But it caught my attention very quickly because I realized it wasn't the standard edition. This is the sample edition of Sonic Adventure 1. Now, if you don't know what this is, this would have been, if I found this in Japan, I would have been very excited. What this is a pre-release copy of the game. It's a final build of the initial, like, Sonic Adventure was a launch title on the Dreamcast in Japan in November of 1998. And right before the release, this is what Sega would have been mailing out to Japanese press companies. Like Famitsu Magazine would have received a copy of this for testing purposes. So it has a sticker on it that says sample. And the disc itself is actually different. It says sample right there, like hard printed into the disc. Now, from a data build standpoint, it's not going to be any different from the official release that came out in Japan. But from just kind of a collector's perspective, it's cool. I actually have the Shenmue 1 variant of this. I do not have the Shenmue 2 variant of it, sadly. If anybody does, let me know. I'd love to get that. But yeah, that was just a strange thing to find on there. But it is a good way to compare. So if you look at the logos, you can see it looks similar, but it ain't the same. Like next to each other, they're actually different in different locations and flipped upside down. And again, on the side, you can see the English text comparison, and the other side, Japanese and smaller English comparison. So yeah, Portuguese versions, Brazilian versions, obviously more specifically, cool to see. Anywho, that was not the end of the pickups from Casa de Video Games. There was one other thing. So Chuzone just walks over and just hands each of us the same box. And he's like, this is one for each of you, referring to myself, John Hancock, and John Riggs. And so I open it up, and inside, in addition to, well, I left a little manual in there, for this is a flyer from RetroCon that just has information about all the guests, of which one I was. But aside from that, this is what was inside. This is the Sega Master System Evolution. This is the current iteration of the Sega Master System in Brazil. You heard that correctly. The Sega Master System, technically, because of this, because of those weird laws and all that, is the longest lasting system in human history. Launched in 1983, and because of Brazil, is still active down there. And this is just the latest model. And it's an interesting release because it has, in an effort to make it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, there is no cartridge slot on this thing. It's basically just a ROM system at this point. Like, it just has a little board, probably a little chip that just has a single Master System emulator, and it comes with 132 built-in games. I don't know if there's any, like, the special exclusive ones or anything like that. This is the first time I got to look at the back of it. But, I mean, it's all licensed and official by Sega. So you might be thinking, well, it's kind of like one of those mini clone consoles. Yes and no, because Sega themselves did not make it, but they completely endorsed its existence, unlike those like Genesis clones or whatever. It would be kind of interesting to see a Master System Mini, like an official one, because I guarantee the only place it really would come out is Brazil and maybe flashes in Europe. But still, that's pretty cool. This to me is just a collector's piece. Like, I just want to display this. This is not like the way I would play it. I think it still uses composite video out and stuff like that. But yeah, this is the latest model. So, huge shout out to Chuzone at Casa de Video Games. I really appreciate it. So let me kind of make a little space here, and then we will move on real quick. Okay. So, now we have our next pile. Now, the next day, they drove us out like 2 hours away from Sao Paulo. I want to say north, but I don't remember the name of the town. And we went to a place called Mr. Games. Now, Mr. Games was another sponsor of the show, and he had a great store full of just like crazy inventory. By the way, if you're excited about all these pickups and like you want to see where the stuff came from, I will have multiple, actually 3 video game hunting videos in Brazil. So stay tuned to that. I don't know exactly when they'll roll out, but like they exist. It's going to happen. So when I was at Mr. Games, I wanted to pick up some stuff. I made a nice little pile, and obviously I was completely prepared to pay for it, and he was just like, okay, sure, no problem, but he cut the price like 50% off just cuz, which he did not have to do that, but he did it anyway, so that was really nice of him. So here's the modest stuff I got from there. I needed, especially after having that, I was like, I really need to have a Sega Master System game, one of the exclusive crazy ones down here. Unfortunately, those are very sought after, so it's kind of hard to find the more interesting ones, but I did find one, and I was willing to pull the trigger on it. Apologies if you hear sirens. If you don't know, I live centrally located between a fire department, a police station, and a hospital, so you never know which it's going to be. Sorry about the jump cut there. The siren got way too annoying, and I was like, I'll just wait it out. Anywho, so this is Dynamite Headdy. Now, this game was released in North America for the Sega Genesis and for the Game Gear. Now, this is the Game Gear build of the game, but for the Sega Master System, exclusive to Brazil. So, yeah, this fit the criteria perfectly. This is exactly like one of the ones I wanted. Sega actually made this back in the day as like a potential new mascot for the system, etc. Yeah, there's a bunch of famous ones. There's like a version of Mortal Kombat 3. There's Street Fighter 2, Sonic 3D Blast. Like, all had Master System versions in Brazil. We just didn't get any of that out of the country. But at least we got Dynamite Headdy. Okay, so next up. Also, they had a lot of weird Mega Drive or Genesis exclusives. I've actually shown you guys, I have the loose card of Duke Nukem 3D, which came out officially on the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive in Brazil only. That I did not pick up on this trip, but I did pick this up. This is Woody Woodpecker something or other. This also had a Sega Master System version, which they had. The Master System version, I guess, is a lot more expensive. Like, this one was like 1/4 the price. And I'm not really sure why. Maybe it's down to being more common. I'm not sure, but either way, this is a game we never got. So I thought, I know Woody Woodpecker. Why not? I'm sure the game's nothing I would really play, but that's not the point. It's just the novelty of being like, okay, yeah, Brazilian exclusive Mega Drive Genesis game. And then we have a Sega Saturn release. Now, the Sega Saturn is an interesting one down there because, once again, Tectoy was responsible for the distribution. However, with the Saturn, much like the Dreamcast, Tectoy didn't do a whole lot of craziness with it. They basically just kind of repackaged the North American stuff, put it in cheaper boxes, and said, okay, that's the Brazilian release. Now, the Dreamcast ones, there was really no reason to pick these up other than just like the novelty of I love the Dreamcast and it's cool to have a bizarre variant. And the same is basically true of the Saturn, except that they had colors of the system that we never got. So there's a black one, there's the white one like the Japanese, and then they actually had the Derby green one. So they had 3 different colors down there, whereas the US only had the 2 black ones. But that's the hardware. As far as software goes, they basically, you know, everybody complains about Sega Saturn cases. If you are in Europe, you complain about it. If you're in North America, you complain about it. Brazil be like, hold my beer, we'll make the worst Saturn cases. They have these like paper cases that were just awful. Now, I love the Saturn, but I didn't have enough of a reason to go after any of them, with one exception, which is this. This is Riven, the sequel to Myst. And you can see by the case, like, it's just a crappy cardboard case, like, you know, just hangs on a shelf there and whatever. But the funniest thing about this release is this is truly an exclusively bizarre release. This game was never released on the Sega Saturn in North America. It did get a release in Europe, but that's the PAL build. So I picked this up because a bunch of people in my Discord were like, you need to get that. That's like an undumped strange release. That's what the term they used, said it was undumped. I have since dumped it. It's safe, I assure you. So I got it, and another buddy of mine named Sega Steve, if he's watching, shout out. When I met up with him recently at Long Island Retro, I bought a second copy of this and gave it to him. We actually checked it out on the Sega Pluto as well as some other stuff, verifying it's actually indeed an NTSC-U build of the game. This is an unreleased American build of the game, except it was released, but only in Brazil, making it sort of part of the North American Sega Saturn set. Like, if you're a complete Sega Saturn guy, technically in the US or Canada, you sort of need this release. It's the same logic of, like, you know, I'm collecting the Sega Saturn and I want all the US releases, but you need that long box of Virtua Fighter Remix from Canada because we never got that. We only got like the little jewel case one. Technically, there's another NTSC-U game, but Brazil only. I don't know. Either way, it wasn't that hard to get. It's actually the only game I saw twice. I bought both copies that I saw. Funny thing about this is that down there on the bottom says totally in Portuguese, like referring to the whole game. Complete lie. Complete lie. We booted up, the whole game plays in English. We even changed the BIOS settings on the system to other languages, just always plays in English. This is a very Tectoy thing to do, is they try to basically make the Brazilians think this game is in your language, you buy it. And as soon as they buy it, it's not, because it's just the US builds of games that never include Portuguese. Very common tactic, apparently, to the detriment and the frustration of people in Brazil. But either way, this was an oddly unexpected and cool release because I did not know about it until it was there, and it was only the people in my Discord who told me about it. The locals didn't know this was special either. But yeah, there we go. Got that. That was pretty cool. Now, after that, we went to another store called One Up Games where I didn't actually pick anything up, but some of my buddies did. That was where I bought a second copy of Riven, by the way, and that's the one I gave to Sega Steve. But unfortunately, I have nothing to show for that particular store for myself. But later, we went to another store called SIL Games, S-I-L Games. That was the last game store we ended up going to. And from there, I got a couple of things. First, they gave me this. This is an indie Genesis game or Mega Drive game. I can't pronounce it. I'm sorry. Ermaus Aratu and Chaplin Karaka. I don't know. We saw some gameplay of it. It's kind of a cool like side-scrolling like beat 'em up that looks like it really pushes the color palette of the Genesis more so than most games ever did. And they just hooked me up with a free copy, which they absolutely did not have to do, but they were cool enough to do it. They also took a photo of me holding it, and then they put it up on their like wall of infamy in the store of like quote unquote famous people that have been there. It's like, oh cool, real famous people, and then I'm there too. but either way, that was very nice of them to do. They didn't have to do that. They also gave a copy to John Riggs and to John Hancock. But I did buy something. I bought something really bizarre, like really weird, to the point where that's why this is last in this particular segment of the video. And I don't know if I was going to create a stereotype of what I wanted a Brazilian console to be. I don't know if it would get any more accurate than this. Like as we were getting ready to leave the store, I was looking in the glass case again, just kind of double checking. And then wedged behind some stuff I recognized, there was just this box, and I couldn't really tell what it was. So I kind of, used my phone's like light and just really checked on it. And I was like, there's no way that's really called that. And it was. Behold, the Mega Brazil 3. Now, this requires some mental processing. What you are seeing is the Sega Genesis 3, done by Majesco in cooperation with Sega. Now, this company is not Tectoy. This is not even Sega. This is some company called Songa. Which, first of all, is funny because it rhymes and it's sort of, and it's lame. But they basically stole this from Sega, which was unnecessary considering that Sega is the most cooperative company in Brazil. They still pirated off of them anyway, which is funny in of itself. But the fact that they called it the Mega Brazil 3. They used it like... How do I put this? That would be like a Famiclone over here called the Mega America or something. It would just be like... You'd be like, why would you call it that? But that's what they did, the Mega Brazil 3. And even funnier, by the way, 3 in Portuguese is called Trash. So if you read it kind of like an English reader, Mega Brazil Trash. It just... And the box, like granted it's kind of sun-faded, but if you were going to make up a stereotype of something called the Mega Brazil 3, I don't know if you could do any better. It's just got pictures of soccer in low resolution. I don't know. But it actually, so in the back is even funnier too, because it shows all the contents, and then the entire back is in English, which is strange. It basically, they just copy and pasted some pre-existing description of what the Mega Drive is, and then inserted Mega Brazil 3 where necessary. The reason that's funny to me is they also specifically mention the Mega Brazil 3 is easily upgradable to handle Mega CD games, with the addition of the Mega CD peripheral. With Mega Brazil 3, you are ready for the future now. Famously, the Sega Genesis 3, and of course this version, is not compatible with the Sega CD or Mega CD because there's literally no slot for it. So nobody even bothered to proofread that, which is hilarious to me. But we'll take a look. We open it up on the inside. It comes with, originally I guess it came with 2 controllers. Mine only came with 1. They say Songa right on the controller. It's just a clone of the later Genesis controller. Power supply cables, even has the manual, which is hilarious. But the system itself is interesting because there you have the Mega Brazil 3. Reset button, the cartridge slot. The cartridge slot is actually thicker and more robust than the actual, like the spring is stronger, I can feel it, than the actual Genesis 3, which is funny. But on the bottom, this is where it gets truly bizarre. They added a whole bunch of switches. So it's got an A and B switch, and then it has region switches, and it has PAL and NTSC switches. So for like, theoretically, this is like kind of the ultimate Genesis because it can play every combination of imports without any sort of modification. Now, would I do it that way? No, because I'm sure it doesn't even support RGB or any of that sort of stuff, and it's a clone console effectively. But I just got such a kick out of it. Like at one point, I want to do like a rare variance on this because Brazil is just overloaded with stuff like that, where it's just completely bizarre, different timeline of events and everything. It's just crazy. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, give me a second here. I got to clear off the table, and then we're gonna go over all my pickups from RetroCon. All right, we're back, and as you can see, we've got some special heavy hitters, but we'll get to it in a minute. let's talk about the rest of this. So, like I said, I went to RetroCon. I was a guest there. It was awesome. Not only did they hook me up with this shirt, actually Chuzone did over at Casa de Video Games. Chuzone also hooked me up with a couple other shirts. This is one of them, still sealed actually. This is the RetroCon 2025 black shirt. There's also a blue version of this, which you guys would have seen me wear in the previous episode of Playload, in which I was also wearing that. So, like, yeah, I've got both, which was really nice. He didn't have to do that, but he hooked us up with a bunch of free t-shirts, which was very cool. This is my favorite one though, just because it's tech toy, you know. But anyway, but these are good shirts. So, a couple little knick-knack items that I got before we'll obviously talk about the main course here. I was not expecting this at all. I was walking around, and this guy, I guess his name's Wally Jr., or at least that's what he goes by. He was an artist, and he had done a bunch of, I guess, comic books and things like that. He knew that myself, John Riggs, and John Hancock were going to be there, so he actually did like fan art of all of us, and he gave me mine, and he signed it, which was really cool. I like that a lot. So yeah, huge shout out to him. I like this kind of cartoonish depiction of me. I'll probably hang this up somewhere. This is pretty neat, actually. So just huge shout out there. Thank you very much. Okay, on to game stuff, though, like game specific. Now, there was a booth called All Old Games. Now, All Old Games, I don't know if they have a physical store somewhere, but they did not have a store that we went to. As a result, their inventory was less tapped than the other places I had gone to. So one thing to understand about this convention is that the dealer tables were basically all the same stores we had just visited. So they didn't really have a lot of time for any new inventory like a couple days after we had just gone to them. In other words, I wasn't too likely to find anything at those dealers. So the ones that I was the most likely to find stuff at were the ones that we didn't go to the stores of. Makes perfect sense. So this one called All Old Games, I actually got a bunch of stuff from, but we'll start here. They had two games in particular I needed. This one I found just digging through the Mega Drive section. This is beat up copy, but this is the Monica game, one of many for the Mega Drive. Now, you'll have to forgive kind of my understanding of this history of this, but this little character is named Monica. Now, Monica is a very Brazilian character and has appeared on, still does, on tons of pop culture. Think of it like a Mickey Mouse-like character that's just kind of in stuff. However, Monica is so popular down there that they would do ROM hacks back in the day of other games. I know there's one like Alex Kidd and other stuff like that. This might actually be it for all I know. And Monica would just be replaced with those characters and then given full official releases. Think about it kind of like how Tokidoki Idol Panic in Japan became Super Mario Bros. 2. It's kind of the same thing, except Monica was getting those type of games, but just for the Brazilian market. And this is one of them, distributed by Tectoy and officially licensed and all that sort of fun stuff. Now, the card itself has seen better days, but it was just really cool to find it, so I was happy to add that to the collection, though I don't know which Monica game this actually is, or which one it's a ripoff of, if you want to call it that, but it was officially licensed, so you can't really say it was a ripoff exactly. But either way, that was cool to have. And the other one, I didn't actually find this. John Riggs did. He bought it for me and just gave it to me because he knew I was looking for it. For the Phantom, we have Ghostbusters. Yes, this is officially licensed. Now, the funniest thing about this, unfortunately, the logo got covered up here with a sticker. But so when the Gradiente, like Phantom situation happened, a lot of companies were lukewarm on it. Nintendo certainly wasn't allowing their name on anything. Activision was. Activision said, yes, put our name on that, blast it. And I think this is actually one of their releases, but although in this case, ironically, it looks like somebody put tape over the logo. But there are many Phantom games that just proudly say Activision, all of them, because I think they were the only major developer that was totally okay with their name being on that stuff down there. But yeah, if you're a Ghostbusters collector, this is an odd variant to try and go get. And I just wanted it. It was also really cheap. So I was like, oh, that's cool. I want that. And I mean, it was cheap for John, and he gave it to me anyway, so I was like, all right, cool. But yeah, we got that from All Old Games. I was given this, and you'll have to forgive me because I don't know how to pronounce this. But this is an N64 repair kit, like specifically for the controller. There's this dude, we met him down there, and he basically designed these himself, and they're basically replacement kits for the thumbstick on the N64, because famously those break pretty easily. So he basically designed a new one, and then you replace it. So I'll probably install this at some point. But that was really cool of him. He's working on distribution for the US because right now he's kind of limited to just Brazil, but he's trying to reach out there. So yeah, this is a neat little thing. But again, I like the box art too because it just looks like a tiny little N64 case. Yeah, I can't. You'll have to forgive my pronunciation. Pinheiro Analogic. I don't know, but I guess he had designed a completely new one that presumably doesn't break as easily, and it just says on the back like "Made in Brazil" and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, just a huge shout out to him there. That was really cool of him to hook me up with one of these. So I didn't pay for that. That was just nice of him to do. However, something I did pay for, as I mentioned before, Dreamcast stuff. I was looking for Brazilian ones, and I think it was called Pereira Games, their store. They had just one thing I really needed, and it was a Dreamcast game. Unfortunately, it wasn't even that expensive. The Brazilian release of Sega Rally 2. I guess this is the most common of the Brazilian Dreamcast releases, but I hadn't seen it until that point, and I was happy to get it. But yeah, it's just the U.S. version of the game, but inside, the manual's in Portuguese and everything. And presumably, based on this, there is an NBA 2K variant from Tectoy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that actually got released. I don't know. But all I do know is that's pretty cool. To any Brazilians watching, if anybody knows, can you come up with a list of all the Dreamcast variants that came out officially under Tectoy down there? I'd love to know just out of morbid curiosity. But there you go. Next, this is neat. So while I was a guest and I had that pleasure, there were other guests that were like far bigger. Duh. A lot of the Brazilian guys. Shout out to my buddy BRK Sidu, Eduardo. I'm sure a lot of you guys know him. He's a big Brazilian YouTuber who lives up in Canada. And he went down to the show. Like, that dude's legit. He's got like 7 million subs and so on and so forth. He's actually a friend of mine, which is very cool. So we got to hang out for the first time in person. We had only previously been communicating online and stuff. But yeah, meeting him was neat. But also they had like their true like get of the show was Yuzo Koshiro. Now, if you don't know that name offhand, don't feel bad, but you certainly know his work. He was a direct Sega employee in the 90s who made a lot of music. Like, he's responsible for, like, the Streets of Rage score, the Shinobi score. Like, there's so many he did. It's like, the list is ridiculous. And I had intended to bring... He also did, not admittedly most, but he did, like, 7% of the Shenmue score. Maybe, like, a couple of the songs. And I had intended to bring a copy of the game specifically to get signed by him, and just totally spaced and forgot to bring it. So when I was down there, I was like, man, I'd really like to find something that he could sign, but it was Shenmue themed, otherwise whatever. And I couldn't find one initially, and eventually the only thing I found was this Dreamcast book that actually had Ryo on the cover. And I asked him if he would sign it there, and he was happy to do it. There's also a page on the inside that specifically talks about Shenmue, and he signed that as well, although finding it might be a bit of a pain here. But either way, he signed it twice. That's really all that matters. Yeah, I don't know where it is, but trust me, he signed it both times. But yeah, so he signed that. That was neat. But that was my second encounter with him. Initially, because I had forgotten the thing, I didn't really intend to interact with him much. And everybody was coming up to him constantly, just even in, like, we had the green room for the guests and everything. Even in there, he couldn't get a break. People just come over like, oh my God, love your work. Can you sign this thing? I felt like I'm just going to leave him alone. I had nothing to talk to him about. I forgot my copy. I was going to leave him alone entirely. It was actually ironic. It was the flip. His handler came up to me and said he would really like to see the Sega Pluto. Is that okay? And I was like, yeah. And so you can see this footage here of just Yuzo Koshiro just scoping out the Pluto and taking photos and everything. I even got a nice photo with him. This was even made into a physical photo for me to keep as a little collectible piece. But yeah, he was cool. He spoke better English than I anticipated, but I spoke enough broken Japanese to just thank him for his time. But yeah, he was cool. Actually, there's a little bonus with that, because we had been trying to get a hold of any of the Sega Pluto development team at all to answer any questions for us, but none of them would talk to us. He took a photo of the system, and he tweeted about it with what we knew at the time to tell him. And as soon as he did, the Japanese engineers took notice. And they actually responded for once, and they basically confirmed almost everything we said, with one exception. We had always been under the impression that Sega of America designed it and forced Sega of Japan to build it, and then Sega of Japan killed the project. What he told this one guy who tweeted it said, Sega of America really had nothing to do with it. Sega of Japan designed it, and Sega of Japan built it, and Sega of Japan killed it. But presumably for the American market, because the systems are region locked to the U.S. I don't know. And the one that we have was found in the U.S., so I don't know. Either way, the guy wouldn't talk to us beyond that tweet. And everything else he said was just kind of the same thing we already knew. But that was cool. Okay, now, should be obvious where this is all going. So right here, we have one of my holy grails. This is a boxed Tectoy Edition Sega Dreamcast. As I said earlier, the system did have an official Brazilian release, and this is what it looked like. Now, I did not expect this to be as hard as it was to find. This was actually a huge pain. So, it was easy enough to find a Dreamcast, but it was always the US version of the Dreamcast, or a Japanese version of the Dreamcast. In fact, when I went to the show, I saw the box, the Tectoy box, multiple times. And I was like, oh, sweet, the Tectoy box, there it is, let's get it. And we found out they're like, oh, reproduction. All the boxes are repros. Like, nobody had the real version of it anymore. They just make a repro box and then sell that with it so that it looks nicer. But to their credit, they're very honest about this. And I was like, oh, okay, no problem. But it was the guys at All Old Games that I got these two things from. We went in there along with Tio, my Brazilian GameCube gigolo, and we were talking to them about it, and they're like, well, we don't have one here, but we do have one. We'd have to go out and like unearth it and all that sort of stuff. And they told us that on like the Friday of the con. And then on Sunday, like we were working out the deal throughout the weekend. Like, can they really unearth it? Can they maintain it? Can they put a GDMU in it? I was like, put the disk drive back in it. Like all this little stuff. And eventually they're like, yeah, we got you. And so they brought it in. This is an original Tectoy Dreamcast from the original owner, I guess, who was willing to part with it so that the gringo could take it back up to North America. But yeah, it's got the console. They even threw this in as a bonus. This is an actual Tectoy Dreamcast controller. It's like new old stock. I guess this one hadn't been used. But they were willing to hook me up with that too, so they were kind of staying together, which was very nice of them to do. Now the system itself, if I'm totally honest with you, there's nothing really that special about it. It's just another white edition of the system. But let me show it to you all the same. If I can, here, okay. Yeah, there we go. It came with kind of the basics you would expect, power cable, all that sort of stuff. It came with this little, oh no, this didn't come with it. Somebody gave me this at the show. It's like a little folder. I forgot about that. I forgot I'd packed that in there. This is a cool folder. Thank you to the additional bonus. I just forgot. I put it in there for Dreamcast purposes. It came with a poster, which is cool because it's a Tectoy specific poster. So you see that side there? It looks like North American enough, but when you look on the back, it's actually in Portuguese over there, all the little advertisements. So this one was specific to the Tectoy Dreamcast. It has the original Brazilian Portuguese manual. And then we get to, it's got a couple of controllers, the composite cables. Let's see. So here's the weirdest thing, right? The controllers and the console never match. Kind of by design. The box art will depict two with the orange swirl, but the actual system used the European controllers, probably because they just had a surplus of them, and that's what they went with. So this is how you know it's actually the real controller. Now, nowhere on the back does it actually say, like, Tectoy, sadly, on the actual molding of the controller. So technically, yes, it could be just a European controller somebody threw in there. That's very possible. I think that's the same with this, too, is that this one is also, despite the orange logo, is actually the blue one. And then the system itself, right here, it also has the blue logo. And on the bottom, you can actually see it says Tectoy. It's got the sticker, all that sort of stuff. And it even came with this little paper disc inside that says... yeah, just it's all in Portuguese. It's about how you have a new Dreamcast, and it fits right in there like that. So I understand that there were two versions, because some of them actually do have the orange logo, and sometimes they don't. It's like, I don't know. But yeah, like I said, it doesn't really look all that special. It's really the stickers that make it interesting. But yeah, that's all the original Tectoy stuff. And yeah, it's just really cool to have this. I mean, am I ever going to play it this way? No. This is purely the collector, super fan, Dreamcast, you know, in me that just really needed to have this. And the fact that we actually found it was cool, but it wasn't just that we found it. Like, this store, the All Old Games dudes, they stepped up to the plate and they're like, because they didn't have it, and they didn't have to do anything special, but they, like, went around, contacted their guys, and made sure to find it, round it up, and bring it to the show, specifically for me. And they hooked me up with a deal on it, too, which was just really cool of them to do. So, yeah, no regrets there. That was really very cool. So, yeah, that will do it for my Brazilian pickups here. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, stay tuned, because there are going to be Brazilian game hunting videos. I hope you guys enjoy that. You'll also see some other people's pickups in those videos as well, and you'll get to see a bunch of stuff that I know I missed in the footage. I'm looking at the footage, I'm like, why didn't I buy that? Because I didn't see it at the time, etc., etc. So until then, though, if you guys could do me a favor, please like this video, comment down below, subscribe if you've never done that before, and check out all my social media stuff in the description. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, Spreadshirt, Travel Channel, etc. I appreciate the support on those platforms. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all later. And also, a huge shout out to everyone associated with RetroCon, not only the show, but every single one of the stores. You know, Casa de Video Games, Sill Games, Ichiban Games, Mr. Games, all of them. Thank you so much for all your kindness, your generosity, and your hospitality. But again, thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you all later.